right, everybody coming in from the waiting room, welcome to our Fixing Mistakes class for knitting. Darren's there on screen. He's going to be your teacher. I'm your voice from beyond, Claire. I'll be hanging out in the chat room, ready to answer questions there and forward them on to Darren as well. Just a reminder that this class is going to be recorded, so if you need to stop and rewatch, you can do that tomorrow on michaels.com/classes. And we'll go ahead and let Darren take it away.
Okay, so we're going to cover quite a few common mistakes that you might face in your knitting. So this will give you the opportunity to be the person in charge of your knitting instead of the knitting being in charge of you. So it's really nice to be able to fix mistakes. A lot of these things, though, you don't have to do very often, which is the good news, because you don't want to be spending your life fixing all these mistakes. But if they do happen, it is nice to know, what to do and how to fix them. So if we want to go ahead and change the view to my hands, and then we'll go ahead and start. So I've got this very poorly knitted swatch here. So you can see this swatch has lots of problems, several mistakes. And okay, so when you're knitting, hold on a second, I'm trying to get my microphone in the right place. When you're knitting, you're always working from the right side going to the left side. So this is me just knitting. But as you can see, there's a big problem right there. I've got some purl stitches here where I probably should have had knit stitches. So I'm going to finish this row and then we're going to unknit it to show you how to unknit if you have some problems that are kind of close to where you're working. So if you see here, I've got this crazy yarn over. I've got twisted stitches. There are purls where there should have been knit. So there's lots of mistakes. And so I'm going to show you how to unknit. So this is something you can do without, because it's very scary to just take it off your needle, because then you have all those live stitches hanging out in the wild and they could run loose and anything could happen. So unknitting, you want to hold your work the same direction that you held it when you were knitting, and you're going to unknit in the opposite direction. So when I finished knitting my work, this was in my right hand. So I'm going to hold this in my right hand and I'm going to be unknitting from the right going to the left. So what you want to do is, if you look at these stitches, the way the stitches rest on the needle, this is the active stitch, which we want to unknit it. This is the stitch right under it. And then there's a stitch right under that one, and then it goes all the way down. So this stitch on your needle is the daughter, this one is the mother, and then under that is the grandmother, and then they just work all the way down your genealogy, your family tree. So that's one way of looking at the stitches. So we're going to unknit them one at a time. And if you kind of hold your fabric right under the stitch that you want to unknit, and then you pull your working yarn like this, you can see how it opens up that window of the stitch right underneath it. And so what we're going to do is take our knitting needle and we're going to enter that window, always going from front to back. So you enter it front to back, transfer the stitch over, and then unravel it. So I've unknitted one stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to do another one. So you enter that stitch right below the stitch that you want to unknit and do it. It's a little tedious, so you probably wouldn't want to unknit like several rows. So you go front to back, just like that. Hold your work right under the stitch that you want to unknit. Hold it tight, pull the working yarn, and you see it opens up that window. Always go front to back. And now we're unknitting. So if you've made a mistake in like maybe 5 or 10 stitches back, or even in the same row, or maybe in just the row below that, and you need to unknit it, that's one way of going back and fixing mistakes. But if you had like 200 stitches on your needles, you're making a baby blanket, you might not want to unknit like 3 or 4 rows and have like 600 or 800 stitches to unknit, because it is quite tedious. So I'm going to show you some other ways as well. But do we have any questions about unknitting? So hold your stitch, hold your fabric right under the stitch you want to unknit, pull your working yarn, and it'll open that window, and then you go right through that window front to back. Transfer it over, unravel. Any questions about that? Comes in very handy. Okay. So pretend that I unknitted the whole row. Well, it's not going to work. I have to do the whole row to show you how to unpurl, unless if I have, okay. I had another swatch prepared for just such an occasion. No, I don't. I'm on the knit side with that one too. Let me show you how to unpurl. I'll finish. So there are no questions? Any questions while I'm finishing this row?
I was going to say, Diane probably wants to know what you're going to show next about. She asked, is it always front to back? Is purling as well?
Yes, and that's what I'm going to get to next and finish this row. So when you are unknitting, always remember that it's always enter the stitch from front to back, always, even if you're purling. And I'll show you that in just a second. I'll get to the end of this row. All right. Almost there. And then I'm going to also show you how to unravel. We'll do lots of fun things. Okay, so again, with unpurling, so I'm starting at the beginning of this row. So I would put my needle with all of my stitches on it in my right hand. So I'll be unknitting from right to left. Okay, get that one out of the way. So hold the stitch right under the stitch that you want to unknit. Same thing. You're going to pull your working yarn, and that's going to open up that window, and you'll go right through and then unravel it. Hold your work right under, open the window, and once you get the hang of it, you don't have to do that so much. You can just kind of see where to go. And so I had that yarn over, so I'm going to be able to fix that yarn over right there. Just let it drop. So unpurling, it's almost the same as unknitting. It looks a little different, but hold your work right under the stitch you want to unknit, pull your working yarn, and then go right through that window, always front to back. You can see I had a yarn over there. I was able to undo that yarn over. So if I wanted to go back and reknit this, I would be able to. And would not have so many mistakes in it. Hopefully the next time I'd be more careful, right? Any questions about unpurling? We ready to move on to something exciting?
Gail does have a question.
Okay.
She says, working into the purl stitch from front to back, guess that keeps stitches from being twisted?
Yes.
She also wants to know if you can show how to tell if a stitch is twisted on the needle.
Absolutely, yes. That keeps the stitch from being twisted. And with what we're going to do next, we're going to talk about, see, I had a dropped stitch right here. So you just pop that right back on. And this might be a good time to talk about a twisted stitch, because this is one of the, this is an opportunity where you would have to twist a stitch. Is anytime the stitch comes off of your needle, then you have to put it back on, and then you have, of course, have the choice to put it on right or to put it on twisted. Okay, so if you look at a knit stitch, that stitch fell off my needle. And basically all it is just a loop of yarn. It's just a loop. And it has a left side and a right side. So it has two sides to this loop. And sometimes you'll hear people refer them as the left leg or the right leg. And what you want to remember is you've got your left leg and your right leg. You always want your right leg to be facing the front, to be facing the side that you're looking at. And you won't have a twisted stitch. Sometimes you'll hear that called as referred to as the leading leg. So that's the leg that should be facing. And if you go to knit that stitch, you can see how it kind of opens up nicely for you, and it's smooth and it doesn't feel too tight. Now, if the stitch is twisted, you can see it kind of opens up this way. So that's not the right place to enter a knit stitch. You want to enter your knit stitch here, and it feels very tight. I mean, you can certainly do it, but it doesn't feel as comfortable, and it almost feels like something's wrong. And if you're not sure, you can take it off, untwist it, and then look at it and see. And if that seems to be much better. But I'm going to go ahead and knit it and make it twisted so that we can look and see how that looks afterwards. Okay, let's see. I have some other twisted stitches. Now, a twisted stitch is not the end of the world. It's not going to ruin your life or anything, but so right here, this is the twisted stitch. So the stitch right next to it, get my needle. So this stitch right next to it, you can see the V, the legs of that V go straight down and they don't really touch each other. If you open it up, the legs go straight down and they're not crossed. But on the twisted stitch, hold on a second, here's the twisted one. If you isolate that one, you can see that the V does not go down and look like a nicely shaped V. You can see how the legs look like they're crossing over. One's crossing over the other one. And that is a twisted stitch. And that's, again, it's not going to ruin everything. But if you get a whole row of those together, I think I put a bunch down here somewhere. I don't see them right away. I think I had some in this other swatch. If you get a row of them together, it almost looks like a area of raised stitches, and the texture is just going to look a little different. I don't seem to have any right there. Sometimes it'll have you twist stitches on purpose because it does want you, like sometimes in a twisted rib, it'll have you knit into the back loop because it kicks that edge of that stitch up and makes the ribbing a little bit more prominent. And if you sometimes on a certain type of increase, you'll end up with a twisted stitch. And it just because you have one, it doesn't seem to make much difference. But if you get a bunch of them together, then that's when the problem is going to really show up. Okay. Any questions about a twisted stitch? You want to see it again? Probably wasn't very clear. So let me do this. I'm going to move on to the next thing, which is picking a drop stitch.
We did have a request to see at the twisted stitch again and how to untwist it.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show how to pick up a drop to knit stitch. And when I pick it up, I'm going to twist a couple stitches. So that way we'll be able to look at them down in the column.
There we go.
Okay, and then that'll make it a little easier for us. So if you're knitting along, sometimes maybe you put your knitting in your knitting bag, or maybe a stitch fell off and you didn't realize it. And as you can see, even if you do drop a stitch, kind of have to force these to unravel. Like it's not going to unravel and run like as fast as it can. See, there was a float. And here's a purl stitch. So when I drop down, I can also fix any mistakes that were down below. Okay, so if you took your work out of your knitting bag and it looked like this, It would probably make you very upset, right? It's so easy to fix. What we do is you find that lowest loop, that active loop, and you put a crochet hook right in there. So it's nice to have a crochet hook, and you want one about the same size that's suitable for the yarn. You wouldn't want to try this with a really tiny little one. So it kind of depends on the yarn that you're using, what size crochet hook you would use. And so to fix a knit stitch, you just want to make sure that you're finding the very last one of these bars, because this tells you how many rows you've dropped stitches on. And you go under that bar, pick it up like that. And then you can kind of hold on to that working loop and you just pull this right back through. You can see how you just climb right up the ladder. So you pick up the bar, put it on your crochet hook, and then pull it right back through. Pick up the bar with your crochet hook, pull it through. Okay, so don't look, I'm going to twist a couple of stitches just for fun. So you wouldn't want to do this, but I'm doing it just for demonstration purposes so you can see what they look like. So if you kind of see what I'm doing, I'm actually twisting the stitch. That's why it's called a twisted stitch, because it's actually, whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's actually twisted. The stitch, that stitch is straight. It's just like a loop. And now it's twisted. So it kind of makes sense what, the name of it. It's nice when things make sense, I think. Okay, so now let's look at these. So they don't look very nice. Something's clearly wrong, right? So this one here, I feel like my light isn't good. Is that better with the light? So let's look at one that's right. So that's one that we picked up that's right. And you can see the leg of the stitch, the V goes down. They don't cross. They just kind of go right next to each other. And then this one, that one looks all right too, because look, the V's come right down. They don't cross. This one, let's look at that one. So what happens is this leg is crossing over. You see how it crosses over that one. This one goes under. So that's a twisted stitch. That's how a twisted stitch looks. This leg is going over that one. Whereas down here, the legs kind of just go right beside each other. Does that make sense? Can we see that? So it's kind of like you have your legs crossed. Like you don't, it's not a good look. You don't want to stand around with your legs crossed, right? So if you notice you have some twisted stitches in a column of your knit, what you can do, you can drop it down on purpose, like I'm doing here. You can see it's not always so easy just to let it unravel. So they all look good. So now I'm going to pick up these stitches, being careful not to skip any. And you don't really have to be careful not to twist them. It's actually a lot of extra work to actually twist them like this. So just be careful not to skip any. That's the mistake that's easy to make here. And then pop that right back on. Remember, we said the right leg should be facing the front. And then that looks really good, right? Now it looks much better. So do we want to see another twisted stitch, or do we want to see, let's see how to fix this, because right here, the stitch is kind of weird, but what happened was the yarn got split. So if you've ever done that, if you've ever been knitting and you didn't pick up all the strands of your yarn and they kind of got split, so that doesn't look very nice. We don't want that. So again, you can just drop down And there was a purl there. So lots of things were going wrong with this swatch. Let's see, unravel it. Especially if you're working with a very fuzzy yarn, it's actually hard to unravel sometimes. All right, so now the rest of this looks really good. So find your last active loop. You're going to put that crochet hook right in there. Make sure you don't skip any of these bars. And then go under the bar with your crochet hook, hold on to your active loop, and just kind of pull it back through. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Yes. Mary Jean wanted to know if you can show picking up stitches in fabric other than stockinette.
Yes, that's actually the next thing. Are we ready to move on to that?
I think we're all set for that.
So we're not going to completely leave stockinette yet, because what we need to learn is how to pick up a purl stitch, which also makes it very nice to know how to pick up a purl stitch. Okay. So we're going to let it drop down, unravel it. Okay, so there's my purl stitches are unraveling. You want to make sure you don't let any other ones drop off by mistake. So put the rest on your needle like this. Now, if you were out and about knitting on the go and you took this out and you were on the subway or in somewhere where you didn't have time to really work on it, what you would want to do would be immediately try to put something like a stitch marker on there to kind of catch that loop so that it doesn't continue to run. It's just easier if you stop it, wherever you find it. And then when you get home or have time, take that off, and then you're ready to fix the purl stitch. Now for a knit stitch, remember we entered the active loop this direction. But when you knit a purl, you enter that purl stitch in a different way than you enter the knit stitch when you're knitting a knit stitch. So same for when you're fixing it. So we're going to enter that stitch from behind all of these rungs of the ladder and from the top. And you enter the active loop from this direction. And there's a little, it's not hard, but it's a little more tedious to fix a purl. So you want to make sure you're giving your crochet hook a lot of neck. So this is your kind of your workspace. You're going to be working here. A lot of people, when they're learning this, they kind of hold their crochet hook like that and you have nowhere to work. So give yourself a lot of neck, a lot of workspace. Take the very first rung of the ladder that you need to pick up, and it leapfrogs over your active loop. Okay, leapfrogs over. You're going to hold your active loop like this, and then you're going to pull that through, letting everything go. And now that became your new active loop. So you want to give yourself plenty of room to work, give yourself a lot of neck. This next stitch that we need to pick up, this rung of this ladder, leapfrog over your active loop, hold the active loop, you can pinch it to hold on to it, and then pull that one through. And now that becomes your next active loop. And then you leapfrog over, hold your stitch, hold your loop, bring that one through, leapfrog over. Okay, how's that? That make sense? Now, I don't love picking up purl stitches, I'll admit that. And so if I were working stockinette stitch like this, so look, you can see you really can't even tell anything happened. By the time you block this or wash it, or probably by the time you're done knitting it, those stitches will all even out. But if I were going to pick up stitches in stockinette stitch like this, I wouldn't pick up purl stitches. I would just turn it to the other side and pick them up as knit stitches, because it's much faster and it's much easier. But like was requested, if we have another fabric, and I have a garter stitch swatch prepared, and I'm going to show you how to pick up stitches in that. Are we ready to move on to that, or do we want to see how to pick up purl stitches one more time?
I think we're okay to move on to garter stitch. And
Ready?
yes,
Okay.
you answered Mary Jean's question before I got a chance to ask it. She was just wondering, well, if it's stockinette, why not just do it from the knit side?
Yeah, and that's what I would do. But I do recommend that you make a swatch, a stockinette stitch swatch like this, about 6 inches or 8 inches square, and practice picking up stitches on both sides of it, though, because it helps you to learn and understand what you're doing. And then when you have to pick them up in a different fabric, it makes it easier to kind of know what you're doing. So go ahead and if you kind of drop a stitch on the purl side, you can go ahead and pick it up, and you don't have to turn your fabric around if it's just like one stitch. So you should practice it. I recommend practicing that. Okay. So this is garter stitch. And remember, we do garter stitch by knitting every stitch on every row. So I'm going to just knit a couple of stitches to get to the in here. So we're knitting along. Everything's good, right? And then something horrible happens. And you end up dropping some stitches. Okay. Now that just looks like a mess. That does not make me feel good, and I know how to fix it. And if I saw this, I would not be happy. But, it is fixable, and it's not that hard, really. So, so with garter stitch, even though you knit every stitch, every row to create this, so every stitch is knitted, you have to remember that you're still creating knits and purls, because when you're knitting on one side of your work, you're putting a purl on the other side, and that's what creates these ridges. So these mountains, these tall ridges, are purl stitches. Right here's our purl, and then if you spread it apart, in here in these valleys are our knit stitches. So we have purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, and then up here, right at the very edge of my needle, I have my last row of knits. So remember, garter stitch is created by alternating rows of knits and purls. So, and if you do it wrong, you can take it out and give it another try. And frequently, that happens. So don't let that discourage you. So this right here is a row of purls, right? This is a row of purls. So this bar is coming out of a row of purls. So this is going to be picked up as a purl. This one's going to be picked up as a purl, and so is this one. So all the ones that are on top are going to be picked up as a purl, and all of the ones that are on bottom are going to be picked up as knits, and they're coming out of these valleys. So the valleys are the knits, and the mountains are the purls. So it kind of creates this almost like a tube, this kind of three-dimensional space. And I'm going to show you how to do it with just a standard crochet hook. So you enter the stitch, pick up your knit stitch, just like normal. And for a purl, remember, you have to reposition your crochet hook and enter it from the top. Give yourself a lot of neck for your workspace. Leapfrog over, your active loop, hold on to that, pull it through, okay? Now to pick up the knit, you have to reposition your crochet hook, and that gets really old really fast. So I'm going to show you a special trick. If you happen to have one of these nifty little tools, this is a double-ended crochet hook, and it is for Tunisian crochet in the round, which I do not know how to do. Maybe someday I'll learn that, but I do have a crochet hook for it, and let me show you how nifty that is to have. So I'm going to go through here, pick up my next one as a knit, and instead of repositioning my hook, look what I can do. I can just slide it up, and now I can reposition that and pick that up as a purl. See, this hook's just a little small, but you can still manage it so you don't split your yarn. Reposition it to pick that up as a knit, and then go back up and pick it up as a purl. Now, if you're knitting like in seed stitch or any other different knitting patterns, you might have to alternate picking up between knits and purls. It might not be such an even thing like every other stitch. Different stitch patterns, you might be picking up 3 knits, 1 purl, 4 knits, 6 purls, like whatever pattern you're doing for whatever reason. So, but if you practice, if you can get good at picking up garter stitch, then picking up drop stitches and garter stitch, then you're going to be pretty much able to handle any situation. Do we want to see that again, or do we have any questions about it? Excuse me.
I think this whole picking up sticks section has been very useful to a lot of people. Everyone's like, I could have saved so many projects. Someone did also mention that they've used this technique on store-bought sweaters as well, where a stitch has dropped.
Yeah, any kind of knitwear, if it's store-bought or handmade, absolutely.
Oh, Mary Jean did want to see it just in case you don't have that two-sided hook.
Yep.
Can we show it again?
I got it. So today, for some reason, some of the comments are actually showing up on my phone, and I can read some of them as I'm going. So it's not usually like that. I don't know why it's different today. Okay, so first thing you want to kind of do is sort these out. Go ahead and put your crochet hook in there to figure out which ones are the top and which ones are going to be on the bottom. So you can see it's kind of a double-sided area. If you can tell, maybe if you look at it that way, you can kind of see how the knit stitches are all on one side and the purl stitches are all on the other side. Is that clear? Does that show up? I'm never sure if things are showing up well on camera. And then you, doesn't matter at first, you just go ahead and enter that and kind of get in that loop to kind of keep everything in place, right? To just kind of look at it and see. So I can see here that this active loop is coming out of a purl ridge. So this is my purl ridge, and that active loop is part of that purl ridge. So my first stitch is going to be a knit. And another way you can tell is if you pull this loop out of the way, the very lowest bar or rung of that ladder is on the bottom of the fabric, and so that's going to be a knit stitch. So that will be picked up as a knit. So you can decide. Sometimes it's hard to tell depending on what the fabric's looking like. So we're going to pick this one up as a knit. And then the only difference is now I just have to remove my hook. You kind of have to hold that loop. So I would kind of, put your finger to keep it open. Reposition from above. Okay, now I'm ready to pick up a purl just like normal. So you leapfrog over, that's the next stitch that needs to be picked up. You leapfrog over it, give yourself a lot of neck, plenty of space to work. Hold on to that active loop, pull it through. Okay. Now again, you want to hold that loop with your finger so you don't lose it. Enter that stitch, find the next one, pull it through. Okay, hold that loop, reposition it. So this is fine to do, but if you have that double-ended hook, it's so much nicer, really. But you don't need to do this very often, so you can decide whether you think you need to buy that or not. So I'm going to show you on picking up a purl stitch. When I've taught this class in person several times, and I see the kind of mistakes students make while they're learning. The biggest mistake for picking up a purl stitch is this. Students will enter the stitch, enter the loop, and they'll hold their hook, that mouth of that hook right there on that stitch. And then they jump over, but then they don't know what to do because, you know, it's not right. So that's the biggest mistake. So if you're really struggling with, like, you're picking up your purls, double check and make sure you're really giving yourself a lot of, I just call it a lot of neck. You're just giving it a lot of, but you need this space to work. This is your workspace. And then you can see how easy it is. This jumps, leapfrogs over, and it lands right on the hook. And then you lock that in the mouth of the hook and pull it right through. And if you practice that a couple of times, it'll be easy to do. Reposition it. And again, the main thing here is you want to maintain that stitch. You don't want to lose it. Find the next one. So we picked up a purl. The next one's going to be a knit because it's garter stitch. And then see here, it's kind of easy to split your yarn. See how it kind of wants to split. So just be careful. Once you've been fussing with the yarn for a while, if you have to, you know, pick up stitches or unravel it a couple of times to get it right, it does start to get hard to work with. So just know that. That if you're having a real hard time and you've been practicing for a while, that might be why, and switch to a different spot. Okay, how's that? Does it make sense?
I think so. We've got about 20 minutes left in class, so I know we've got a few other things we want to cover.
Tricks. So let's go back to this stockinette stitch swatch. And I'm not going to knit them. I'm just going to slip all my stitches over to get to the edge, because this is a fun trick. It's a fun party trick. If you're in a knitting group and somebody has this problem and you know how to fix it, you'll be the hero of the day. Okay. So maybe somebody's not paying attention, or for whatever reason, this stitch drops off the end. And I mean, honestly, usually what's going to happen is just going to sit there like nothing. It's not going to, like, it's not like it's spring loaded and it's going to automatically start unraveling. But if you're working with a very slippery yarn, or, you know, if you're not being careful, if you're jostling it around a lot, then it could unravel. But you can see I'm trying to unravel it, and it's actually, you know, not quite so easy to unravel. So these things don't happen all the time. It's not like, you know, knitting is full of all these dangerous mistakes that are just waiting to happen. All right, so that doesn't make anyone happy, though. Like, if you took your knitting out of your knitting bag and you saw that, you'd probably be like, well, it's time to start over. But this is actually an easy fix as well. Okay, so the thing that most people think was, I know how to pick up a drop stitch, so I'm just going to pick these up just like any other drop stitch. Oops. But it's not like any other drop stitch because this is on the edge. And so, I mean, that doesn't look right. That's not good. So that must not be it. So the thing you have to remember about stitches on the edge, so to line them all up nicely before you start. Okay, so let's look at this loop right here. It's coming out of this row, and then it circles back around, and then it's going back through the row above it. So these edge stitches are actually involved with two different rows. So they actually count as two stitches. So it's one, this isn't one stitch, this is two stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so you have to pick each one of those loops up twice. And the best way to do that is kind of put your finger on that loop so that you have the top and the bottom of the loop kind of separated. And now I can pick up the top of the loop. So put your finger in there and kind of maintain that loop. Pick up the bottom leg, pick up the top leg. And I've been fussing with this. I've done this a couple of times, so it's not looking so good anymore. Pick up. Okay. Any questions about the picking up on an edge? Do you want to see me do it again, or how do we feel about that? Make sure you don't split your yarn when you put that back on. Looks pretty good. This stitch here is kind of loose, but other than that, it looks pretty good. Any questions?
I think you've just made everyone's day with this fix.
Yeah. And then if you get something like this where you've got like a really loose stitch, all you really have to do for this is you just need to kind of spread that slack out a little bit. So if you can see, you pull this stitch, then that one goes back into place. But now you've got this big loop here. So it's kind of like, if you ever have like one shoelace that's way too long, you kind of have to space out that slack to even it out. So that's kind of what you do here. Like you can just kind of work that out, leaving a little bit of that slack behind each time. So if you ever get a snag in a store-bought sweater or a handmade piece, it's kind of the same. And then you just kind of work that across, leaving a little bit of slack behind each time. And again, knitted fabric really wants to be even. So just by wearing a sweater, like if you do this and it's not quite even, just by wearing it and then washing it, letting it dry, something like this, if you do it out, see that still looks a little loose, but that would kind of work itself out in the wash after a couple of times. You'd be really surprised. But you could, if we wanted to fuss over it, we could really make that look perfect. But I don't think you want to spend your life watching me do that. I bought a sweater from Banana Republic, and this like the first day I wore it, I snagged it. And I sat with a tiny sewing needle. It was one of those small knit sweaters. And I sat for like hours with a tiny sewing needle and worked all that slack out of it. So it takes a lot of patience and maybe some good reading glasses. Any other questions about anything we've covered so far?
We did have a request to see the edge stitch fix again.
Okay.
And then maybe while you're doing that, you can talk about Catherine's question. She wondered, what if you dropped more than one stitch at the end of the row?
Well, you're just in big trouble at that point. I've never done that. We could try to fix it and see what a mess we make. I've never had that happen before.
I was going to say, my theory would be to put your stitch holder or something in one needle or one stitch to sort of stop it going any further.
Yeah. I don't know,
and then
big mess.
You could use like a double pointed needle to knit both stitches up together.
I don't even know if I could fix that. Gosh, have you had this happen before? Has she had it happen?
I don't know, maybe. She made a mistake in the ribbing on the side.
I don't know. I've never had that happen before. I've never even tried to fix it. I think what I would do, though, is just start out pretending. Let me maybe do one more. Let me see. Now I've probably ruined everything. Probably at that point, put them on my crochet hook like this. And then kind of pick them up one at a time. Although you might, at this point, want to, you know what? I take it back. I actually have had stuff like this happen when I've been doing my sweater repairs. Very similar things to this. Okay, so now I've established that I have 3 stitches that are dropped. That's my stitch right there. So, and then the double-ended hook comes in really handy for this too. Yeah, you don't want to forget and like pull it through all the loops. You want to be sure you're maintaining each active loop. And if you're a crocheter, you might feel like you're just going to go ahead and finish that stitch, but remember, we're not crocheting. Yeah, I've never had this happen before, so I hope this doesn't happen to anyone very often. Can you kind of see, is that helpful or not? Can you kind of see what's happening? Next, you're going to want me to pick them all up as pearls, and I'm not going to do it. If anyone requests that, they're out of luck.
No, we won't make you do that.
And I'm not doing it in garter stitch either, so there.
Everyone is amazed that you're able to fix it.
Yeah. You know, knitted fabric, surprisingly, and I am teaching a class next month on how to fix repairs in knit, how to make repairs in damaged knitting. And it's surprisingly very fixable. Like, I don't want to say it's easy to fix, but it is actually quite, you know, with the right amount of patience, it is much easier to fix than you would think. So, well, I kind of impressed myself with that one. And then at this point, I might drop these down one at a time because that stitch looks twisted, right? I picked that one up somehow twisted. But once you get to this point, what I would do is I would probably drop each one of these columns down one at a time and pick them back up because that's easy. You know, I recreated the fabric and then now I can go back and fix each column one at a time. How's that?
Ta-da! All right, now we're down to about 10 more minutes. I'm not sure what else we wanted to cover.
All right, so we did the twisted stitch and we did picking up knitted stitches, purled stitches, garter stitch, the edge stitch. It's most of what it is. We're going to talk about putting in a lifeline at this point, I think. So let me see if I can raise my... I knitted this swatch just for fun. All right, so we've got these cute little gnomes knitted, right? And let's say this is the first time you've ever done this type of work and it was a lot of work and you don't dare want to mess it up. So once you've finished all this hard work here, one thing you can do, and then, okay, so you finish this is the bottom of a sweater, and then the next portion you're going to do is something else. Maybe you're doing lace, maybe you're doing cables, maybe whatever. And maybe you're not sure how to do it. And what the fear is that if you mess up up here, if you mess up what's going on up here and then you try to rip it out or unravel it, you don't want it to risk this becoming unraveled. So there's a couple of things that you can do to prevent that from happening. And the one thing is for people that plan ahead, and you can see right here, this thread that's going through my stitches. And what I did there was I took dental floss. Now, dental floss is very strong and it's not going to break very easily. So you can take dental floss on a large-eyed blunt needle and you just run that through all of your stitches while they're on your needle. So as soon as I was done finishing this, I knitted 2 rows and then I took dental floss with a large-eyed blunt needle and I just took that and ran it through like this, all the way across. Now, people like to use dental floss because it doesn't leave any fuzz behind, it's very strong and doesn't break very easily, and it's minty fresh, right? I probably wouldn't use the mint kind, but it's a good choice. I've done it in the past where I've used another type of yarn that is smaller than what I've been knitting with, something that's a similar color, like you wouldn't want to put red or black because it could leave lint behind. Cotton yarn is really good for this type of thing because it's usually not fuzzy. So if you had a mercerized cotton or something that's not fuzzy, but also in a similar color. And then as you can see what happened here, maybe I was knitting in my sleep, like we don't know what happened, but lots of things went wrong, right? That just looks awful. So I want to rip this out. You don't really want to unknit it because that's a lot of rows, and unknitting it can be quite tedious. You don't want to drop down and fix every one because like my stitch count is off and there's all kinds of things going on. So the best thing to do is to just take it off your needles and unravel it, which can be very scary. So for the people that plan ahead, if you put this Lifeline in advance, then you can take your needles away, just rip it out, unravel it, and when you get to this dental floss, it'll stop. It won't be able to unravel anymore. And then you just put your knitting needles back on there and you're fresh to go for a new start, right? You can maybe reread the pattern or ask a friend what maybe some advice. But if you didn't put that dental floss in because you didn't expect to have to do this, there's still a way to do it. And this is putting in a Lifeline. See right here, I have a drop stitch. I've got all kinds of problems. Putting in a Lifeline after the fact. So after you've knitted it, now I want to rip it out. I don't want to risk ripping out these guys because they're pretty cute. They turned out pretty good. So I don't want to risk ripping them out. So I want to put a Lifeline in to protect them. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do it, and then I'm going to show you how to start it. So we're going to review first how to do it. So if you look at a knit stitch, so we're going to isolate this stitch right here. Excuse me. And you can, of course, we know a knit stitch is shaped like a V. What a knit stitch is not shaped like is an upside down V. So if you're looking at an upside down V or an A shape, what you're looking at is 1/2 of one stitch and 1/2 of the other stitch. So you want to make sure you're looking at the stitches correctly and you're seeing that V shape. So that way you're looking at an actual stitch. And when we pick up, we're going to insert this needle. And what you want to do is get a knitting needle that's smaller than what you've been knitting with. It wouldn't have to be this much smaller. Like this is a size 13. You could probably use like a 9 or maybe a 10. But I like to use a really small one just because it seems to make it easier. And so what you're going to do is you're going to pick up the right leg of each stitch. You're going to skip the left leg and pick up the right leg. And if you remember from our discussion earlier about twisted stitches, and we said the right leg should be the one facing you. So that's what's going to end up happening is we're going to put our needle all the way across. We're going to rip out our work, and then these stitches are all going to be on your needle, not twisted, ready to go, ready to re-knit, okay? So, but how do we start it? Sometimes it's hard to start it at the beginning because the edge stitches do tend to look a little kind of, because they curl, right? So they kind of look hard to tell. So what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of pick up that first, that's the first leg. It has to be, because that's on the very edge. So you're going to pick up that first leg, go to the next stitch, pick up that leg, go to the next stitch, pick up that leg, and you're just going to go all the way across. Now, if you do this right and you're very careful, it's really a beautiful thing, and it makes it very easy. But even if you do it wrong, you don't have to be very, fussy about it. Even if you do it wrong, it's still going to be a very good thing, because if you end up with a couple of twisted stitches, or maybe you end up going up one row or something by mistake, like see how it could be easy to pick up the wrong leg. When you unravel it and rip it back to that point, then you're just dealing with one row, and it's easy. Like you could just unknit that row stitch by stitch. It wouldn't be so bad. So let's quickly, and I'm cheating because I'm just following my lifeline across because I want to try to get this done quick. But see how you're always, and it's easy to, you think you know what you're doing and you're looking at it correctly, but when you're looking at stitches like this, sometimes it's easy to kind of lose focus, and you could be picking up the wrong leg by mistake. You might actually be doing it. So just every now and then stop and look at what you're doing and just double check and make sure you're not off track. Okay, now what it should look like, you see how all of these strands of yarn that I've picked up are all like leaning the same direction. They're all slanting the same way, and they're all spaced about the same distance apart. So that looks really good. Like I picked them all up the right direction and I didn't skip any. So if this one was like facing that way, then you can see I probably picked up the wrong one. So, but this looks really good. So now what we can do is we can take our knitting needles away, pull our knitting needles out. And this is called frogging. And the reason it's called frogging is because you rip it, rip it, rip it. So it sounds like a frog. You just rip it, rip it, rip it, rip it. And you can see it's much faster than unknitting, but it can be much scarier too, because you don't want to lose, you've got all these active loops. They could all go crazy. They could start, especially if you're using a slippery yarn, they could really start to unravel. But you can see with a fuzzy yarn like this, they don't necessarily start to unravel right away. So it's not really as scary as we think it's going to be. Aha, so here, nope, I did it right. Okay. So because I was careful and I did it right, my stitches are all on my needle. They're all facing the right way. So I'm ready to start knitting. So then what you can do is you just take, this is the needles I was, it's not, but just to say it was, and you just start knitting again. So it would have been on the purl side. And you can knit it directly right from the smaller needle onto your big needle, because this is the needle that's going to be shaping it. So it's not going to, you don't have to transfer it back to a big needle and then start knitting, because the needle is going to be shaping it. The stitches will be shaped right and everything will be good. So any questions about that? I've never had to do that once ever in my knitting. Have you ever had to do that, Claire?
I have, yes. I'm trying to think. Oh, I think I was probably knitting a sweater from the top down and I started the ribbing too early or too late, one of the two.
Yeah.
So I went back in and put a lifeline in and just pulled it out.
It makes it a lot safer though. It does make it. If I was going to do it, rip it out like that. I try not to rip out. I just live with my mistakes, right? That's what I do. But um, yeah, I would definitely wouldn't want to just take all those stitches off of my needle and just hope for the best, because it's hard to, if you start dropping them and unraveling them, whatever could happen. So do we have any other questions? Anything else I can help with before the class is over? I think we're almost done.
Yes.
So if you do have any questions going forward, or if you think about something later, you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is Mr. Woolly Bear. It's Mister, spelled out Woolly Bear. Maybe Claire will put that in the chat for me. And I put a few videos yesterday, quick little tutorials on how to pick up an edge stitch and how to pick up a purl stitch. So you can kind of watch those. But if you have questions, you can send me a direct message, and you can usually answer them pretty quick. So, all right.
And just a reminder, everyone, too, I'm going to pop the handout in the chat one more time before we go, in case you wanted to save that. And this recording will be available on michaels.com/classes and their YouTube channel tomorrow. It'll be up there for a long, long time. It'll probably fall off the classes page as they offer other things. So go to YouTube, save it to your own playlist or whatever. You can also save the chat. Thank you, Catherine, for reminding me. We also have some more classes coming up in November. I forget the exact dates, but I know we've got the fixing repairs and holes and things like that. We've got one on steeking if you want to learn how to cut your knitting. That's a dangerous thing. And those are all available to sign up for at michaels.com/classes. All right. Oh, let me put the handout in there one more time. All righty. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.